Magic is found in every room, where people connect over a shared purpose. Luke, Hannah and Chris explore the role of purpose, courage, mindset and culture in every leader's quest for transformational performance.
Hello and welcome to Magic in the Room. I'm Hannah Bratterud.
And I'm Chris Province.
And I'm Luke Freeman. And we are excited to have you back with us for season 5.
Wind it up.
Wind it up. What's that a reference to? Is that a baseball term?
No. It's just get it hype. You said we're excited.
Wind it
So I
up.
said wind it up.
I was like a Jack in the Box. There could be a surprise. I'm trying to just think like what's the
Well, you know,
the
like,
root,
Wind
the
up
root
the-
word, the
think about a
reference.
toy, right?
Uh-huh.
Or anytime
Yeah.
you're like converting energy
Uh-huh.
into something to then be released.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you said we're excited, I didn't really feel it. In your voice.
I'm winding it up.
Yeah.
By
I didn't really feel you. We're excited to have you back. But
Okay.
I was wanting some like real excitement.
Wind it up, Luke.
It's
So
I like it because saying wind it up is winding it up.
yeah,
It is.
exactly.
I like it.
That's
And
why
saying
it was-
like get hyped is
Yeah.
actually increasing the hype level.
there we go.
Wow.
That's
So
why-
just in doing the thing, just
Yeah.
in saying the thing, you do the thing.
Right. That's why everybody at the good concerts has a microphone on stage telling you what to do.
Yeah. Well, this gripping conversation is just a small taste of what you're going to get on this episode. So, season 5, we are talking about leading a team. Last season, we talked all about what is intentional leadership. This season, we are applying that to, okay, you're in a positional role where you have positional leadership over other people. What are the skills, right? People learned you how to use word processing, and they teach you how to fill out some forms, and they teach you how to do your technical thing, make a cabinet, do some CAD design, whatever your thing is. But they didn't teach you when you're a leader, like there are just as simple as using a computer program or learning how to build a cabinet. There are things that you have to know how to do. And that's what we're talking about in this season. So last episode, we talked about trust. This season, we're talking about providing accountability. What are commitments? How do we as leaders create commitment? How do we create teams where the teams are committed to certain behavioral standards? That is a skill. That is an art. That is a thing that we have to know how to do, create accountability on a team. And accountability is not a cuss word. So that's what we're talking about today.
Absolutely. And really this idea, figuring out what we're accountable to, right? Isn't that the idea of commitment? So how do we build, go public with, publish our commitments in such a way that we can use them to properly orient ourselves and our team to ultimately do great work?
Yeah.
So let's kind of dig into that. This idea that before there can be accountability, there must be individual commitment and a shared understanding of team commitments.
Yeah.
I think we see a little bit of layering here between leading myself and leading a team, in that I have to understand what I value. I have to understand how I want to perform in my role in order to understand what I'm committed to today. And then, like, how do we do that as a team and excavate shared understanding about what we're here to accomplish? Let's pull some thread on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think fundamental to accountability is commitment. And accountability starts with commitment, and it starts with an individual commitment. What am I committed to doing? And that lies, in there lies what I'm going to make myself accountable to, right? And then, so I have a question for the two of you. Can I hold someone else accountable?
It depends on are you talking about accountable as a action? I can provide accountability through an action by setting consequences for someone else not meeting a commitment. Right? That's one definition. Or accountability as a trait. Right? Someone who is an accountable person. They understand their standards and they hold themselves to those standards. Right? That is an accountable person. It's a trait rather than an action, which would be holding someone accountable or holding myself accountable.
Yeah. I like how you broke that down. Chris, what are your thoughts? Can a leader hold a team member accountable?
No, that's language has always landed clunky to me. I think a leader can cultivate commitment.
Yep.
Certainly. A leader can recognize when members of a team fulfill our commitments in exceptional ways, especially. And a leader can really issue remedy, to Luke's point, right? Those repercussions. A leader has remedy or access to remedy for personnel that are not accountable.
My 17-year-old really has this figured out. So he's kind of sharp. And about a year ago, when we would get in arguments or when he wasn't meeting standards, my wife and I would say, like, hey, we're not angry, but we're going to hold you accountable for not meeting this standard. And he was just like, bullshit. He's like, you're not holding me accountable. He's like, you're punishing me for not doing what you want me to do. For not meeting the standard, there's a punishment. That's whatever this thing is, taking my phone away or, making me do this chore because I didn't do something earlier, whatever the thing is, right? You can't drive for a week, He's like, that's a punishment for me not doing what you want me to do. And I'm just like, yeah, you're right. And so we've had to really pivot and we can't play we're going to rebrand punishment as, we're creating a culture of accountability. No, we have standards and there is remedy, to use Chris's word, but straight up, there's punishment. There are repercussions if you don't meet the standards of our household.
There are consequences to our actions.
No, it's not natural consequences, right? So I don't make myself a sandwich. I get hungry. That's a consequence. That's a natural consequence of a choice or a behavior, right? If I drive recklessly, I run into the ditch. That's a consequence for me doing something I shouldn't have done. But when I have a standard as a leader, you don't meet that standard, I have power in this relationship. It is just a punishment.
Yeah.
Or it is a retraining or whatever you want to say.
Or
There's
it is
a coercive
an
nature
enforced consequence.
Sure, right. But I think we're getting into here, there's a lot of confusion out there about accountability. Yep. And I think a lot of the folks on our teams, if we come out of the gate and say, hey, we're building a culture of accountability on this team, they're going to just, in their minds, they're going to be like, okay, so I get punished if I don't do the right thing. And to some degree as leaders, we have to be okay with saying, yes, if you're going to be on this team, you have to meet some standards.
Yep.
And we all do this already. So when you think about someone coming on board, most organizations do this. There's an employee handbook that outlines policy procedure, and it has some fireable offenses. If I harass someone else, if I steal something, whatever, and I sign and I say, okay, I'm agreeing with these standards and you're going to punish me. There's a remedy if I break these policies. What we fail to do oftentimes is express in an explicit way, but wait, there's more. Those aren't the only standards. But a lot of leaders, they don't explicitly say there are more standards than the handbook that you signed upon hiring.
Yeah.
And here's what those are. And if you're going to be here and not face remedy, we need to all be clear that there's more than just what was written out in the handbook. And in a really great scenario, maybe they're on the wall, right? In our department, on our team, this is what performance looks like that we're committed to, right? It's that explicit that it's written down. People see it, they understand it, they discuss it. It's part of day-to-day conversation. But a lot of folks, like, they just don't take that step.
Yeah. And I love asking leaders and teams that question because it always sparks interesting conversation, right? And some people will say, yeah, absolutely, you can hold people accountable. And then the question is, so if I choose not to be accountable, can you make me? You can punish me. You can make life miserable for me. You can force me and coerce me into the action you want. And is that accountability? No, I think it's just a remedy for action that was not up to the standard. And accountability has to start internally. I have to choose to be accountable, to be an accountable person, and to keep my commitments, right? I have to be clear on what my commitments are to myself and what the commitments are to others as a leader of a team. What are the commitments I make to my team members? And then what are the commitments that we share as a team? And then last month we talked about trust. When there's high trust, it becomes like accountability is possible because we have trust in our commitments. We have trust in what we each choose to commit to and what we all agree to commit to together as a team.
Well, and we know that kind of precursor to engagement is clear expectations. Mm-hmm. Where does conflict and distrust come from? Unmet expectations, right? So this idea that we have to be explicit about what we expect from ourselves, mm-hmm. what we expect as a shared responsibility or as shared responsibilities for this team, and we confirm understanding of those, mm-hmm. then activating those, like through commitment,
yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So commitments being those behaviors that activate our values. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna call out something. I like, there's a resource that we use. It talks about leaders being willing to do just a little bit more. Mm-hmm. They care just a little bit more. So this idea that commitments are behaviors mm-hmm. that activate our values. And, this orientation that I think it can give us, understanding that today is all we got, right? Yesterday's a memory, tomorrow's not promised. So, like, if only for today I will do these behaviors as a leader, right? Giving proper orientation to myself before I can properly lead a team. So whether that's being courageously kind to everyone I meet, or extend grace in times of conflict, or make certain people know that they're loved, these commitments are behavioral that, when activated as individuals, we'll someday have all the benefits of having many days well lived, mm-hmm. but as a team, it builds the muscle to make things happen. Mm-hmm. Like, we know there are certain behaviors that if we execute on as a team will make us successful. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I want to say, like that whole idea of doing a little bit more. Like, leaders do it. They just do it. They care a little bit more. They do a little bit more. They stay a little bit longer. They do what it takes. They communicate a little bit more. They design a little bit more. They do a little bit more because they believe intensely about their values and they execute on their commitments. Mm. They do a little bit more. If you do not want to live intensely, you're going to struggle as a leader. Mm. Because your intensity, how strongly you activate your beliefs, determines the potency of your outcomes. That has been my experience. I'm interested in you guys' take on that, because we really haven't talked about intensity.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to disagree with this idea that a leader has responsibility to have a level of intensity greater than the responsibility of an individual contributor. That there is a bargain in having the power and the influence of leadership that you have to be worth it and earn it. And I don't believe that we should back down from that responsibility. And the thing that I would maybe caveat, and it's not disagreeing with this idea of leaders need to have intensity at all, it's just coloring it for people a little bit. I don't think intensity means I talk loud or I do things faster, or it just means I care more. Mm-hmm. It means I care enough about what we're doing. I care more about what we're doing than I care about comfort. Mm-hmm. I care more about why we're all doing what we're doing than I care about avoiding conflict. Mm-hmm. I care more about what we're doing than I care about status quo or being sure about how to do something, or all those things that keep us from moving forward. And in this conversation in particular about really understanding accountability, I'll go back to that handbook versus what really, as Chris put it, what will make us successful? What are the commitments that we have that will make us successful? A leader cares enough about performance that they do not just say, well, you signed the handbook, that's the rules. As long as everyone does that and doesn't fall below that standard, you can be fine here. The reality is an effective leader says, hey team, what makes us perform at our peak? Okay, we'll have a conversation. I'm hearing about 8-10 different things. Can I write them down? Great. Look, here's what they are. Does everyone kind of agree to these? If we did these things, we would be successful as a team. All right, can we all stay accountable to this? Can we call each other out if we don't live up to these standards? Can I, as a leader, you find if I continue to coach us and champion us forward in living up to these standards? Yes. Okay, we're going to do it. That sounds like work, doesn't it? It is.
It is.
That's hard.
Bingo.
And I'm not saying that's the only way to get commitments, right? But that's just an example of that's hard. Mm-hmm. And you got to care more and you have to have intensity to do that, to make yourself do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, leadership is hard work. It is work. It is applying skill. It's staying open to learning. And in order to do any of those things, you have to care. And I think caring is a good way to think about intensity. How much do I care? And what lengths am I willing to go for this team, for the outcomes that we're here to do, for the commitments that we've made to ourselves, to each other, and to the organization or the purpose that we're here for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so let's think about that. Let's think about the term then, accountability. Like you said, a lot of times it can be associated with punishment. That's not it at all. That's a repercussion or a remedy. Mm-hmm. We treat accountability as some sort of, one-off event rather than an ongoing state, right? Mm-hmm. And ongoing is I think accountability is a state. I think leadership is a state, mm-hmm. right? It's leadership is not an event. Accountability is not an event. Mm-hmm. But I would, when we train or educate or try to elevate accountability, we use the Oz principle, which kind of outlines a bunch of above the line and below the line behaviors. And at the outset of the Oz principle, the entire idea is see it, own it, solve it, do it. Mm-hmm. Right? Do it. Like we were just talking about.
Which is not so different from notice, choose, and act.
Right.
Which is how we define intentional leadership.
Yeah, and so the Oz principle, it's the Wizard of Oz, right? And it teaches us to don't get stuck on the yellow brick road. Don't wait for the wizard to come wave his magic wand, but rise above our circumstance to take full ownership of our own problems, challenges, and responsibilities.
Well, and that was the whole point in the Wizard of Oz, is that there was no wizard and everyone had what they needed to do what they needed to do. And they just had to discover that. And I think that's like a really powerful analogy for leadership.
Yeah, key function of that. Rise above your circumstance to own these things and solve these problems. Because typically when we fail on a commitment, we want to play the blame game. Oh, well, so-and-so didn't get me the thing that I was waiting for him to give me, so I can't deliver to you what I was supposed to deliver to you. Or, me and this other person had conflict, right? And so it just really set me back. That's not good enough, right?
Yeah.
There is a world in business. At the end of the day, there are things that are done and there's things that aren't done.
Sure.
That's the only thing that matters. Only healthy businesses can help people, and a business that cannot deliver on what it commits to the market, it brings to the market, will fail.
Sure.
That commitment has to run through the organization. There are things that are done and there are things that aren't done. Rising above circumstance to make sure things get done is the state of accountability. Things that aren't done lead to low performance environments. So how do we accept accountability as a state?
Got a regular Jack Welch over here.
I'm a little low on compassion when it comes to things being done or not done.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to give a reason. Okay, I want to tell you all the reasons why I didn't get this thing done. Guess what? It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It's not done. Your reason is just some other form of an excuse, right?
Spoken like the true Jay.
Yeah.
So
The market is a J. Just
Right.
FYI.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what I really like about this is, we're Purpose and Performance Group, as a company, that's how we operate. And both of those parts are equal, but performance matters. We have to deliver. The things have to be done. That's performance. What we are talking about today is how to get to that state. How do you get to that state of accountability? And I think the thing that some folks don't recognize, there are a lot of folks who would listen to the podcast and be like, well, Chris had it right. Things are done, things aren't done. And totally miss the point that getting to a state where things are done probably starts with you in some meeting or conversation with someone holding yourself accountable as a leader and saying, oh gosh, the other day I didn't get this thing done. I totally messed up. I have a higher standard. Our team has a higher standard than that. I'm sorry. I'm doing whatever it takes right now to remedy that and get the thing done. Can you help me? Or here's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And that is the path. The how enables the what. How the skills we employ as leaders with other human beings, the human skills we employ, determine if we're at the get it done state or the not get it done state at the end of the day.
Well, and then there's the why. And yes, things get done all the time. Are they the right things? So are we doing the right things or are we doing things right? And I think part of leadership is help to inform that. If we're going to have accountability, we got to know what we're committed to and why so that we can make sure that the most important things are done. Because you can show me a checklist of all the things that got done and I'll be, good job, you got a lot of things done. And guess what? we are not ready to deliver on this thing that is the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think just to get into some tactics of how we get to that things are done state, that state of accountability, like we have to own it. As a leader, like more can say, I'm an individual contributor. We missed a deadline. Oh, well, we tried hard. We didn't make it. Right. Instead, it turns into every instance of not done. I, as a leader, did not get it done. And I could sit here and I could play the blame game and I could say, oh, this vendor didn't give me this, or, oh, so-and-so up on the line didn't get it to us in time, or someone made a mistake, or we ran out of fasteners, whatever. I could say all of those things, but ultimately I have to be in the mindset where I say, I let us run out of fasteners. I communicated in such a way that that vendor did not understand the importance of us getting it today. I did not reallocate resources when so-and-so got sick to make sure that that person at that point of the line didn't make a mistake. I am the reason that we are in a unaccountable, not get it done state. And when that's the mindset that you can engage with, and you can go to your team and say, we missed today, but guess what, everyone? I missed today because so-and-so told me 2 weeks ago we were getting low on fasteners and I didn't want to spend the money and I didn't order us the fasteners. And guess what? When I went earlier today, the store was out. That's my fault. I'm sorry I put all of us in this situation. Does anyone have any ideas about how we get it done tomorrow because we failed today? Like, that's the path to a state of accountability tactically. Mm-hmm. And on the back end, there's plenty of blame, right? Behind closed doors, we might be yelling at that vendor. We might be saying, we're finding a new vendor, right? We can be doing all sorts of things to remedy the situation, but publicly with our team to build trust and build a culture of accountability, that is not the message. Oh, I yelled at so-and-so. He said he's going to get it to us tomorrow. No, it's I let us fail today. Here's what I'm going to do to get us into a state of it being done and accountability tomorrow.
What's key in that? If I take ownership as the team leader for some sort of failure to deliver on a commitment, I don't have to call the person out
Right.
who ultimately ran the bad play. They know who they are. Mm-hmm. And when I take that responsibility, like, guys, at the end of the day, right, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I apologize. And we will address this procedurally in such a way that this won't happen again.
Right. And what that is trust building behavior. You know, we talked about trust last time, which is a foundation for performance, for commitments, for accountability to be able to happen, true accountability. Yeah. What this sparks for me too, though, is prioritization, because what I find in my life is that if this thing is getting done, that means this other thing is not getting done. Mm-hmm. And how do I choose and how do I prioritize, whether that's what is personally getting done by me, whether it's what we choose to focus on and commit to as a team. Because if we commit to this thing and getting this thing done, there are some other things that we're probably going to have to say, let go of, or say not yet. They are not getting done, but we're going to be committed to this thing. Yeah. And part of that is being clear on purpose, but also having those conversations, right? Those level setting conversations where there's openness and where there is the psychological safety and the cultural environment to be able to put all those things on the table and say, okay, I will commit to getting this thing done. And that means that this other thing, and maybe I don't have a choice. Maybe they both have to be done somehow. And then I have to make a personal sacrifice. There's someone or something that's not getting some of my time or energy or effort?
I think yes, and that's another reason why communication always has to flow.
Yeah.
Right? We got to know where we're at so we can prioritize. I'm going to take the tactics of it. So let's say we have a defect, right? I think like in a high accountability environment, immediately the leader is, hey, here's something that happened. My bad. I didn't have the right visibility into how we were, delivering this thing. But how do you guys feel about implementing this process? Maybe it's another set of eyes. Maybe it's a QA component. Maybe it's a measurement before we start a job. Maybe it's, in our world, maybe it's another question on a survey, right? Or it's a design component we put into our instructional design process. But I take ownership first. Then I'm going to go get all the information I can about what happened. After I take responsibility publicly, I'm going to call the player in or go see that player on their terms and just say, I just need some color on this. Like, how'd it happen? Give me some background. Share with me the process that was used. Was there something that basically, was it something in our provisions, our material, our inputs? Is it something we didn't see? Is it something in the tools that we're using? Or is it just an oversight, right? Was it a human error, right? But in part of me taking accountability is figuring out why a defect happened, whether it's a dissatisfied customer or faulty product or whatever the commitment was that was missed. Part of being accountable is to not gloss over it. Because I could just go do the service recovery with the customer, or internal or external, and not do anything else. But being accountable is going and saying, okay, let me figure out how it happened. What was that cause? And now let's address that procedurally, training, whatever has to be done to make sure that same failure or defect doesn't repeat itself. So hopefully that order of operations can be helpful. Let's wrap up.
Yeah. Takeaways. Big takeaway. Hannah, what do you think?
Yeah, a big takeaway for me is just coming back to this point of commitments are what enable accountability. And commitments activate our values. And so the role of purpose and values and trust, you can't have any of this without trust. But a leader's responsibility in ensuring that we're clear on those things. Then we don't have to work so hard at accountability because there now is a climate where accountability happens.
Yeah. For me, the big one is just this leaders care more. They care enough to do this work. And when I think about the work required to create clarity about what are we as a team accountable to, it's significant. It's a significant amount of work. And people say, well, if I'm not doing production work all the time, what am I going to be doing? Well, there's plenty to do, right? Leading people, there is plenty to do if you take it seriously. And if you want to be an excellent leader, you're going to be the busiest you've ever been. Because if you care more, there's a lot of work in creating an accountable culture. And it starts with you. It starts with clarity. What really are the standards? And how do we make sure everyone who walks through the door, everyone who logs on, everyone who's a part of the team understands those standards? Chris, takeaway?
I have no right to have an expectation if I do not create commitment.
Yeah.
There should just be none. And I mean, we see it time and again. Like, there's all these expectations without clarity around what we're committed to.
Yeah.
And then we have implicit, unspoken expectations.
Yeah, conflict, underperformance, and all the things that go along with that. Yeah, and then can I believe in those commitments intensely enough
Yeah.
to activate them through my behaviors in a differentiating way.
Yeah.
If I don't want to be like everybody else, it takes a little bit more care. It takes a little bit more action. It takes a little more give. Everyone is willing to be average.
Yeah.
Like every leader is willing to be average. So tell me how I can be different and how I can be better if I'm not willing to believe a little more intensely.
Yeah. I'm going to get a little bit meta here as we close, because one area that we see this a lot is actually in leadership standards. So senior leaders, executives, business owners oftentimes will be facing this conundrum of, hey, I'm growing, or things aren't working, or I've been plateaued at this certain point as a business. Whatever our state is, like, people aren't happy. My leaders, I haven't been able to grow from within. And it usually comes down to, like, what is the explicit expectation for leaders? So they've signed the handbook, but
Right.
but where else is the list of explicitly as a leader, what are you responsible for? And then are we actually providing resource to get people up there? Because, I mean, the school hadn't, their junior high didn't train them how to do it. So, we run into this all the time with people saying, well, I have this expectation that people care more and they work a little harder and they build cultures of trust and people don't just quit their teams all the time and complain about their leader. Well, like, if all they did was sign the handbook, like, that doesn't do it. So doing that work of being explicit, getting people trained up, and then holding them accountable to actually be a good leader, actually advance the strategy and purpose of your organization, actually create a workforce that is the best in the world at what they do. Like, lots of people think that they just don't have to do that as a business.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. They can never expect more if they don't explicitly set those expectations.
And as we set and so as we exit today, I want to challenge every organization and leadership in every organization to, when we look at our values or our commitments as an organization, that we recognize people for exhibiting those. We celebrate when we see those, and we train and focus on those as attributes of exemplary leaders within this organization. And as a practice, taking those organizational values, what this community believes, and developing professionals and people around those. Because these are what we believe in here. These are attributes of successful people within this organization and exemplary leaders that we're going to count on today and to take us into the future. So if you've done that process, awesome. If you haven't, let's start today. And if you need help with it, give us a call.
Yeah.
Reach out. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. We're on the Gram. Check us out at purposeandperformancegroup.com. Also, if you don't mind, leave us a review on this episode. Smash that like button, subscribe, get the reminders when new episodes come out. And just love to hear any feedback that the folks out there listening want to give us.
All right. Magic in the Room is hosted by Chris Province, Hannah Broderud, and Luke Freeman. It is produced by Ben West. Social media management is by Emma Holland and Maggie King Robinson. Our theme music is by Evan Grimm. You can find his music on Apple Music. This episode was recorded live in person in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Magic in the Room is a production of Purpose and Performance Group. Find us at purposeandperformancegroup.com, and you can find previous episodes of this podcast at magicintheroom.com.